Hello friends, this is part 2 of the chapter number 1, class 7th of science, which is nutrition in plants. If you have not viewed my previous video, I would strongly suggest that you go through it first because this is a continuation. Okay, now we will talk about some concepts that I had not touched upon in my previous video, essentially because it was already 20 minutes and did not want to overload you with more. Now the book mentions about what are cells, what are its various components. So I think you need to know about these terminologies. It will be helpful later on as well. Now, like a house is made of very small bricks that go in together to produce a wall, and then we fit in doors and stuff into it. The building block of a house or a wall is going to be bricks, correct? So these small bricks come together and then produce a structure which is called a house or a wall. Similarly, for any organism on this earth, whether it's a plant, human body, fish, lion, whatever, they are all composed of small things which are microscopic things, which is an individual entity of life, and that is called as a cell. It is microscopic. Millions of them can sit on even a pin tip. Okay. Now these cells have obviously got, like a brick, if you were to look at a brick and you were to look at a cell, it could be of any shape. I'm just making it for my convenience as a round. Like a brick, it has got a boundary, and that boundary or the outer wall of a cell is going to be called as a cell membrane. Okay, it is something that you need to learn. Cell membrane is the outermost part of the cell. Inside the cell, there is going to be a command center. Now this command center is like the brain of the cell. It is called the nucleus. Okay. Nucleus has important things, like our genome is sitting inside the nucleus. It has got DNA, RNA. You don't need to know about it right at the minute. But what you need to understand is that it's like the CPU of the computer. It's like the brain of a human body. It is the most important powerhouse of the cell. Not exactly powerhouse, I would say the command center. Okay. Now between the cell membrane and the nucleus, there is a fluidy structure that is present, and that is called the cytoplasm. Plasm because it's like a fluidy plasma like thing. Cyto meaning the cell. Now the cytoplasm can have other small structures present within it as well. We will talk about that later when we talk about in detail about what a cell is composed of. But the three terms that I want you to have as a takeaway here is going to be cell membrane, nucleus, plasma, that is cytoplasma. Okay. Moving further. We had last time discussed about photosynthesis. We had learned that we needed the sunlight. We had learned that there was a wax coating that's present on the leaf. We had learned that there were chlorophyll containing cells, which were important to produce the reaction. Then there were some spongy cells which were just lying there as an unorganized heap of cells, if you were to say, with a lot of space in between, and this was called the air space. Okay. Following that, there was another layer of cells, and in between them there were spaces, like supposing this is a space which we are potentially talking about, then these were the guard cells, and the diagram of the guard cell was also given in the book, which is somewhat like this. This is the opening. Now this can close or this can open as a gate. These two guard cells are commanding that, if the gate is open, it lets the atmospheric gases come in, that is going to be CO2. It also lets oxygen escape after the end of the food processing that has happened. And there will be another layer, which is the lower layer of the leaf. This is the upper layer, this is the lower layer. This is from where the sunlight came. Right. In between, inside the leaf, there are going to be structures which carry the water and the nutrients. These are like veins, if you were to say, and they carry the water which is coming from the stem and that's coming in from the roots, right? A leaf is adopted in many ways to help with photosynthesis. It has to be thin so that it allows for the gas exchange. It has a wax coating to prevent water loss. It has green colored chemicals which is called chlorophylls to help with the reaction. Then it has also got a mechanism by which these vessels are transferring the other required nutrients. The other thing is that it has got these guard cells that control the opening for the gases to transfer. So what I have tried to highlight is how leaf is a very nice assembly of structures to help with the process of photosynthesis. Now the book gives you some very intriguing questions. It says that if you were to leave a leaf or a plant, in fact, in dark and then test it for starch or carbohydrate, what will happen? This will be discussed with your practicals, but I'll just give you an example. If supposing if you just cover a leaf with a thin piece of black paper as a strip, it will give you the similar result. Essentially what they're trying to tell you is the importance of light for the process of photosynthesis. If kept in the dark, the leaf cannot produce starch, and gradually the amount of starch in the leaf is going to go down. So when you test for the starch with the help of iodine, you will see that the amount of starch is reduced. This would obviously be much more clearer to you once you're doing this experiment. You can also do this without putting two different plants in light and then in dark. You can just stick a tin foil or a black paper on the leaf like this, leave it for a few days. After that, take this leaf and then test it for starch. What you will see is that starch should give you blue-brown color, blue-black color in fact, if you were to say. There would be a distinct marking wherein you will see that the starch is present in the leaf which was not covered, and it is absent which was covered with in the area which was covered with the foil, which were to show that the light is going to be an essential factor for the photosynthesis to happen. So what all was important for photosynthesis? Sunlight, carbon dioxide and water. Remember that because sun is giving you the entire energy for the process to be driven, sun is the ultimate source of energy. We all eat the plants or the animals who also are getting energy from the animals, from the plants. So hence, what is the net source from where we tapped the energy? It is going to be solar energy, and hence there is a very important sentence that sun is the ultimate source of energy on earth. Okay, so it's a very important, a very profound sentence which you need to understand. Now moving ahead further, there is another very interesting question. Do non-green plants do photosynthesis? Because we had talked about that the green tinge is coming because of chlorophyll, which was important for photosynthesis. If a plant is non-green, I'm sure you must have had seen plants which have got purple leaves and stuff, which are very good in landscaping. Usually for gardening, these artistic kind of plants will be used. Do they do photosynthesis? The answer is going to be yes for most of them. The reason why they have all these colored things is because apart from the green colored pigment, that is chlorophyll, they have got other colored pigments as well. Examples can be carotenoids or acanthoids. Let me just have a quick Acanthocyanins in fact. Now, if these chemicals are present in a greater amount than the chlorophyll, the green color is masked and the red color or the blue color or the purple color becomes much more conspicuous. But still the chlorophyll is doing its job and is doing the photosynthesis. During the autumn period, it is the chlorophyll that is lost, and hence you see these carotenoids becoming more prominent and hence the yellow color to the leaves. The leaves obviously die away after the chlorophylls have gone. The plant has exhausted its source of food and it falls off. Now there is another category of a plant wherein they don't have chlorophyll. They are non-green, of course, and they are parasites. They rely on other organisms to give them the food. So the answer to the question that the non-green plants, do they do photosynthesis, can be yes or no, depends on whether they have got chlorophyll or not. If they do not have chlorophyll, they will have to, like any other heterotroph, rely on another organism to give them the food. This brings us to the next section about heterotrophs. Oh my god, my spellings are horrible, aren't they? So we have talked about the autotrophs. Hetero was other. These are those organisms, or we are talking about plants at the minute, who rely on other plants for their food, or other organisms, let's put it that way, for their food. We will first and foremost start off with the thing that we have already just now discussed, which is a parasite. Now, what is a parasite? This is a definition that you must know. Parasite is when one organism lives with the other. There is an interaction between two species in which one is harmed and the other is benefiting. The parasite benefits. It lives on somebody else, which is called the host. It is like some guest has come to your house who is not leaving after 6 months also. They are a parasite on you, aren't they? You are the host. You are providing them with food and every other requirement. They are the ones who are benefiting, but you do not benefit. So there are a few things that need to be satisfied to be called a parasite. One is that there should be two people involved, two different species obviously. One is providing for the other. So one is being harmed, the other is benefiting. Both can't benefit, both can't lose. Okay? So that is the condition that has to be satisfied. Now, which plants will be parasitic? Those plants who do not have chlorophyll. They can't produce their own food by photosynthesis. Now what they do, they give out special roots which are called hostra. These roots suck into the host plant and they extract energy and the food particles essentially and give it back to the parasite, These can go into the stem, these can go into the roots of the host. So you can have a stem parasite, you can have a root parasite. Essentially the mechanism is that they are going to extract food from the host. The host plant is going to produce the food for them and also for themselves. Okay. What was hostria? These are the specialized roots that a parasitic plant gives into the host. An example of a parasitic plant in your book is that of amarbale, in which they have also given a nice photo of that yellow colored plant which does not have chlorophyll of course and is relying on the others. There are other examples that may be asked of parasitic plants to you, and I think it's important that you know a few. Mistletoe is another example. Dodder is another example. And the world's largest flower, Rafflesia. It is called the corpse flower, essentially because it gives out a smell of a rotten meat. It has got 5 petals. It is the world's largest flower and it is a parasite. So we have talked about a type of heterotrophic mode of nutrition which is called parasitism. Okay. Now we move further and see what are the other examples quoted. Right. So now we talked about Insectivore plant. Vor are the eaters, those who eat insects. So what do the insectivorous plants do? They have got modification of their leaf. So instead of a normal leaf, what they have is a pitcher. Pitcher means a pot. You might have had gone to McDonald's and order a pitcher of Pepsi. Pitcher essentially is a pot. Okay. What does this pitcher have? This pitcher has hair which are pointing downwards. Insect comes, insects gets into this pitcher, and the lid, which is again a part of the leaf, closes and the insect is trapped inside. Because these are downward facing hair, he cannot get out, or it cannot get out. Sorry. Now, like the stomach secretes digestive juices, the pitcher walls are going to secrete digestive juices and they will eat this insect. They will digest this insect and the plant is going to have its nutrition. So the example of a insectivorous plant is pitcher plant. What modes of heterophytes have we discussed so far? Parasites, stem parasite, root parasite, giving out special roots which are called the hostria. We have talked about the pitcher plant. Now we will talk about, now all these terms are exam questions, you need to know them. Saprophytes or saprotrophs. Now saprophytes are going to derive their nutrition from dead, decaying organic matter. So the very words that dead, decaying is going to imply this is filthy, isn't it? Where do you see them? You see them every day practically. If you have ever noted, if you keep a bread slice for some time in open, not in fridge, within 1 or 2 days there will be, if this is the bread loaf, you will see some hair like fluffy thing coming out. Obviously don't eat that. That's the fungus. It is digesting the carbohydrate of the bread, the decaying bread, making it soluble, absorbing it, and then surviving. Now from where do these fungus come from? You had just kept the bread. Well, in our atmosphere, in the air around us, there are small seeds that are floating all the time of these fungus. When they find something which is wet, damp, organic that they can eat on, they settle on them when they are floating. It comes, it sits here, and it also gives out its special roots, if you were to say, and sucks into this bread and takes its nutrition. Mushroom is another common example, which is another type of a fungus. The plural for fungus is going to be fungi. Okay? So that's another mode of nutrition which we have talked about, the saprophytic. Now comes a very important thing that you need to know. Not all associations are harmful. There can be associations that are beneficial, which are called symbiotic. Okay. In symbiotic association, again like parasites, there have to be two people. Okay. This is A and this is B. They are two different species interacting together. Obviously, A and B can't be the same species because otherwise they're not going to help each other. They have the same deficiencies. So A and B are two different species who are interacting together and helping each other in some way. Now, both A and B can be benefited, which is mutualism. If only A is benefited and B is not benefited but not harmed. If it was harmed, it was parasite. A was parasite, B would have had been the host. But A is benefited, B is not harmed, then this is called as a commensalism. It can also happen that A is not benefited but B is benefited. That is again commensalism. If somebody would have had been harmed, then that would have had been a parasitic association. Very technically speaking, symbiotic relationship does include parasitism as a subtype, but because it has been given differently, we will just stick to these two forms of symbiotic association, which are going to be mutualism, wherein everybody's benefit from the interaction. The second obviously being commensalism, in which there is one fellow which is getting benefited, the other fellow is not getting harmed. Giving you example of mutualism, there are organisms by the name lichens. Now, very interestingly, that's not one organism, that's actually two organisms. This example is from your book and hence you need to know. Lichen is an algae and it is a fungus. The algae can produce food by doing photosynthesis, and that's its contribution to the relationship. And a fungus can provide the structure, can provide the water, and that's how these two live together, and they are so intertwined into each other for their existence that they are referred together as a lichen. No longer are they referred to as different entities, although there are two. Now, looking at another symbiotic association which has got a great economic value and something that you must appreciate is the legumes. Now, legumes are a special class of crops. They are the pulses. Now, this is the soil, okay. This is the legume plant. What do these legumes do? Legumes have got very vast root system. It helps to bind the soil and prevent soil erosion. But what do they have in their roots? They have got big nodules sitting in their roots. Nodules are going to be bulb-like structures, okay. Now, what is sitting in these nodules is a special organism which is called by the name Rhizobium. You need to cram this. What is Rhizobium supposed to do? It is a nitrogen fixing microbe. It's a bacteria. It's a microorganism, hence microbe. So these are housed here. They live in these nodules. What do they do for the plant is that they fix the nitrogen that's present here in the soil for the plant to take. Okay, they increase the nitrogen content for them, and this mineral is used later on to produce further things and help in the metabolism. Now when this plant is cropped away, the roots obviously stay back. Now how it helps the farmer is that it increases the nitrogen content of the soil, and hence the next crop that they are growing, they need to add less of fertilizer, which comes to the point, I mean, why are we even discussing this? So one thing was that we talked about the symbiotic association between the microbe and the plant. The microbe obviously sitting inside the root nodule is fixing nitrogen for the plant. The plant is giving it space to live. It is a symbiotic association between the rhizobium and the legume. How it helps the farmer? Now plant needs nutrients from the soil. Yeah, so it is taking nutrients from the soil. We commonly call it the NPK, that is nitrogen, phosphorus, and the potassium. Well, it needs several other minerals as well, but NPK is actually a very common fertilizer formulation, hence very easy to remember. Well, the plant needs these nutrients each time it grows. Now farmer will continue to grow the plants in the same soil. There will be a point when these nutrients are going to get exhausted. What are you going to do? You will have to add the nutrients. How do you do that? You use a fertilizer, or you use a manure, which is a more natural organic form made from dung and other things. Fertilizer is going to be chemicals made in factory. You have to obviously pay for this. It is cost to the farmer. It is not a natural product. It increases the chances of toxicity if it is going to get washed away into the nearby water body when there is rain. So instead of it just sticking into the soil, this chemical can go and pollute the water bodies as well. So you do want to reduce your reliance on fertilizers. How is the legume helping you with this? Legume is housing a microbe which is fixing the most important nutrient for the plant, which is called the nitrogen. Nitrogen is present in abundance in the air, but the plant can't use it. It can only use carbon dioxide and oxygen. Oxygen is actually being given away. Now, the nitrogen is being naturally fixed by rhizobium. So, smart farmers, what they are going to do is, they will use it for what we call as crop rotation. They will use nitrogen fixing crops. What is crop rotation? Between two crops, they will grow a legume. Legume usually grows in around about 2 to 3 months. Now they have some time between the major cropping seasons, which are the Rabi and the Kharif. Okay. In between them, they can plant a legume plant, which is going to be a nitrogen fixing crop. Why? Because it has a symbiotic association between the rhizobium and the plant seated in the root nodules. Now they get the plant as well. They get the cash crop in the form of the pulses. They get that away, plus the land is fertilized naturally. That has increased nitrogen now. So there is reduced reliance on fertilizers, manure and the manures. Hence, symbiotic association is of great importance when it comes to the agricultural practice as well. Right? Okay. Moving ahead, I think we have covered most of the things that I needed to from this chapter. I'll just make sure that we have covered all the points. Yes, I think we have. Do leave us a comment if there is anything else that you would like me to do and explain you further. See you in chapter 2. Thank you.